In hazardous areas, the selection of thread lubricants is governed by specific requirements to ensure safety and compliance with the electrical codes. The National Electrical Code, specifically Article 501.15, addresses wiring methods for Class I, Division 1 and 2 locations. This article mandates that threaded joints and conduit systems be made up tight with a lock nut or other approved means. Where necessary, a sealing compound or an insulating gasket shall be used to prevent water from entering or leaving the box. Furthermore, NEC Table 501.15 bone requires the use of an approved thread lubricant for threaded joints in these hazardous locations. The purpose of these requirements is to maintain the integrity of explosion-proof enclosures and prevent the propagation of flames or explosions. ANSI/is A-60079-20-1 also stipulates the use of approved thread sealants or lubricants in hazardous locations, reinforcing the importance of selecting appropriate materials. Approved thread lubricants possess specific characteristics that make them suitable for use in hazardous environments. Firstly, they are typically non-flammable, meaning they do not readily ignite or support combustion, thus minimizing the risk of fire or explosion. Secondly, they are non-volatile, indicating that they do not evaporate or release flammable vapors into the surrounding atmosphere. This property is crucial for maintaining a safe environment over extended periods. Thirdly, approved thread lubricants are non-conductive, meaning they do not conduct electricity. This prevents the creation of electrical paths that could lead to sparks or short circuits, which could ignite flammable materials. Some examples of approved thread lubricants include Krauss-Heinz screw thread lubricant STL2, a widely recognized and accepted product in the electrical industry. Another option is Dow Corning 732 electrical insulating sealant, which provides both lubrication and insulation properties. Thomas & Betts Connect CTL-1 electrical thread sealant is also an approved choice, known for its reliability and performance in hazardous environments. It is essential to understand why Vaseline and similar products are not approved for use as thread lubricants in hazardous areas. These products typically do not meet the stringent requirements for non-flammability, non-volatility, and non-conductivity. Their use can create a significant fire or explosion hazard. Vaseline, for example, is petroleum-based and can be flammable under certain conditions. Additionally, it may not provide adequate sealing or lubrication for threaded joints, potentially compromising the integrity of the enclosure. The consequences of using unapproved lubricants can be severe. A fire or explosion in a hazardous area can result in significant property damage, injuries, or even fatalities. Furthermore, using unapproved lubricants may violate code requirements, leading to fines, penalties, or legal liabilities. To ensure safety and compliance, it is imperative to use thread lubricants that are specifically approved for hazardous area applications. These lubricants have been tested and certified to meet the rigorous standards for non-flammability, non-volatility, and non-conductivity. Selecting the right thread lubricant involves several considerations. Firstly, consult the manufacturer's instructions and safety data sheets to ensure that the lubricant is suitable for the specific application and hazardous environment. Secondly, verify that the lubricant is approved by a recognized testing laboratory such as Underwriters Laboratories or FM approvals. Thirdly, consider the temperature range and chemical compatibility of the lubricant to ensure that it will perform effectively under the expected operating conditions. In summary, the use of approved thread lubricants in hazardous areas is a critical safety measure. By understanding the requirements of the National Electrical Code and ANSI/ISA standards, and by selecting lubricants that meet the necessary criteria, one can minimize the risk of fire, explosion, and other hazards. Always prioritize safety and compliance when working in hazardous environments. Furthermore, consider the long-term effects of the lubricant on the threaded joint and the surrounding materials. Some lubricants may degrade or corrode over time, potentially compromising the integrity of the connection. Choose a lubricant that is compatible with materials used in a conduit system and that will provide long-lasting protection. Also, ensure that the lubricant is properly applied according to the manufacturer's instructions. Over-application or under-application can both lead to problems. Too much lubricant can create a mess and potentially interfere with the proper tightening of the joint, while too little lubricant may not provide adequate sealing or lubrication. Regular inspection and maintenance of threaded joints are also essential for ensuring continued safety and compliance. Check for signs of corrosion, damage, or leakage, and reapply lubricant as needed. Replace any damaged or deteriorated components promptly to maintain the integrity of the system. In addition to thread lubricants, other sealing compounds and gaskets may also be used in hazardous area applications. These materials must also be approved for use in such environments and must meet the same stringent requirements for non-flammability, non-volatility, and non-conductivity. When selecting sealing compounds or gaskets, consider the specific requirements of the application and the environmental conditions. Choose materials that are compatible with the chemicals and temperatures present in the hazardous area. Proper installation of sealing compounds and gaskets is also crucial for ensuring their effectiveness. Follow the manufacturer's instructions carefully and ensure that the materials are properly seated and tightened. Regularly inspect and maintain these components to ensure that they continue to provide a reliable seal. Training and education are also essential for ensuring safety and compliance in hazardous areas. Workers who install and maintain electrical equipment in these environments should be properly trained in the specific requirements for thread lubricants, sealing compounds, and other materials. They should also be familiar with the relevant codes and standards, such as the National Electrical Code and ANSI/ISA standards. Providing ongoing training and education can help to ensure that workers are aware of the latest safety practices and that they are equipped to perform their jobs safely and effectively. In addition to the technical aspects of thread lubricants and sealing compounds, it is also important to consider the human factors that can contribute to accidents in hazardous areas. Fatigue, stress, and distractions can all impair judgment and increase the risk of errors. Implementing effective safety management systems can help to mitigate these risks. These systems should include procedures for identifying and assessing hazards, controlling risks, and monitoring performance. They should also promote a culture of safety, where workers are encouraged to report hazards and near misses without fear of reprisal. By addressing both the technical and human factors, one can create a safer and more compliant work environment in hazardous areas. In conclusion, the selection and use of thread lubricants in hazardous areas is a complex and multifaceted issue. It requires a thorough understanding of the relevant codes and standards, as well as a careful consideration of the specific requirements of the application. By following the guidelines outlined in this discussion and by prioritizing safety and compliance, one can minimize the risk of fire, explosion, and other hazards. Remember to always consult with qualified professionals and to seek expert advice when needed. The safety of workers and the protection of property depend on it. Always prioritize safety by reading all material data safety sheets before using any products. Verify the material you are planning to use is rated to be used in the specified hazardous environment. If there is any question, contact the manufacturer. Do not try to guess or assume a product is rated to be used in a hazardous environment. If the product is not rated for a hazardous environment, do not use the product and contact the manufacturer. There are many instances of people guessing or assuming that the product they are planning to use is rated, but in actuality it is not. There is a reason why there are specific certifications to designate that the product is rated to be used in a hazardous environment. Also, the environment will dictate what products can be used. Know the rating of the hazardous environment you are working in, what the temperature and pressure is. Make sure you have all the specifications before starting the job. Be sure that your work area is safe before you begin. If you are not sure, consult with a safety professional. Even if you think your work area is safe, it is always prudent to consult with a safety professional to be absolutely certain that the work area is safe. Use a checklist to verify the product you are using is the product that is listed to be used in a hazardous environment. The thread lubricant may be rated for a hazardous environment, but if it is not the one that is specified, do not use it. Only use the product that is specified. Make sure that the threads are clean and clear from debris before applying the thread lubricant. Sometimes, even if the thread lubricant is rated for a hazardous environment, if the threads are not clean, then the product will not be as effective. The torque rating of the conduit fitting could also be affected if the threads are dirty. If the product is not applied properly, then the hazardous environment rating does not matter. The conduit fitting could overheat due to a loose connection. Also, if you are not familiar with the conduit fitting, consult with a professional. Each conduit fitting could have different characteristics and require special tools. This is another instance where even if the thread lubricant is rated for a hazardous environment, if the torque rating is not correct, then the product will not be as effective. Make sure that the conduit and conduit fitting are grounded properly. If the conduit and conduit fitting are not grounded properly, then a static electrical charge could occur. If there is a static electrical charge, this could ignite the hazardous environment, and the rating of the thread lubricant is irrelevant. In addition to ensuring the thread lubricant is rated for a hazardous environment, ensure that it is applied properly, the threads are clean, the torque rating is correct, and the conduit and conduit fitting are grounded properly. These are all contributing factors that help ensure a safe work environment. Also, consult with the local regulations and code to verify if you are adhering to all the policies. Sometimes, there are specific requirements that need to be followed in addition to using a thread lubricant rated for a hazardous environment. This is especially true if you are working in a jurisdiction that is not familiar with hazardous locations. If you are in doubt, reach out to the authority having jurisdiction. Make sure that you are following all of their advice, because they are the final say-so on what can be done safely in that location. Also, document your work and take pictures of the work before, during and after the completion. This will help not only you, but also help the next person who has to work on the project. Be as thorough as possible. If you think something is not right, do not be afraid to bring it up to the foreman or supervisor. Be careful when deciding what thread lubricant you use. It is important to note that some thread lubricants are compatible with certain materials and not with others. Using an incompatible thread lubricant can cause corrosion or other damage to the conduit and fittings, which can compromise the integrity of the electrical system. Always consult the manufacturer's specifications to ensure that the thread lubricant is compatible with the materials being used. In addition to compatibility, it is also important to consider the temperature rating of the thread lubricant. Some thread lubricants are only suitable for use in a limited temperature range. Using a thread lubricant outside of its temperature range can cause it to break down or become ineffective. Always consult the manufacturer's specifications to ensure that the thread lubricant is suitable for the expected operating temperature. When applying thread lubricant, it is important to use the correct amount. Too much thread lubricant can make it difficult to tighten the fitting properly, while too little thread lubricant can result in a poor seal. Always follow the manufacturer's instructions for application. It is also important to avoid getting thread lubricant on other surfaces, such as wiring or insulation. Thread lubricant can damage these materials, which can create a safety hazard. If you do get thread lubricant on other surfaces, clean it up immediately with a clean cloth. After applying thread lubricant, it is important to tighten the fitting properly. Over-tightening can damage the fitting or the conduit, while under-tightening can result in a poor seal. Always follow the manufacturer's instructions for tightening. Once the fitting is tightened, inspect it carefully to ensure that it is properly sealed. Look for any signs of leaks or gaps. If you find any problems, loosen the fitting and reapply thread lubricant, then tighten it again. It is also important to keep a record of the thread lubricant that you use. This will help you to identify the correct thread lubricant to use in the future. It will also help you to track the performance of the thread lubricant. This information can be used to improve your electrical system. When working in hazardous locations, it is important to take extra precautions. Hazardous locations are areas where there is a risk of explosion or fire. These areas can be found in a variety of industries, including oil and gas, chemical, and mining. If you are working in a hazardous location, it is important to be aware of the potential hazards. You should also take steps to protect yourself from these hazards. One of the most important things you can do is to use explosion-proof equipment. Explosion-proof equipment is designed to contain an explosion within the enclosure. This prevents the explosion from spreading to the surrounding environment. You should also use intrinsically safe equipment. Intrinsically safe equipment is designed to prevent the release of enough energy to ignite a flammable atmosphere. You should also follow all safety procedures. Safety procedures are designed to protect you from the hazards of working in a hazardous location. You should also be aware of the emergency procedures. Emergency procedures are designed to help you respond to an emergency in a hazardous location.